computer. There we go. Okay, fantastic. So, folks, listen, a massive welcome to you all. My name is Paul Harrison, and it's absolutely fantastic to be with you today. I really appreciate your time. I know you are busy people, you're successful people, and therefore I'm going to, respect your time and give you some great content here as well. Folks, we are very fortunate to have Craig Loader, aka Cuz, as the co-host here. Cuz, great to have you here, mate. Really appreciate you being able to do this on an audio today. Yeah.
Nowhere else I'd rather be right now, Paulie. Very happy to be here, mate. Privileged to be a part of this. So very happy to be here.
Beautiful, fantastic. So, folks, we'll run 45 minutes of content, and then I'm going to go into to Q&A. If you have questions, again, for people who've just joined us now, please. You can type stuff into the chat box. I won't be monitoring the chat because I want to get through all this content so I can make sure I finish this off at the right time for you and be able to get that done for you. Cuz will be managing any questions coming through and get onto it a little bit and then get into the Q&As there a little bit later as well. So with that being said, folks, what I want to share with you now is the next 45 minutes, great content, game-changing content, that and a very unique approach to building high-performing, self-made sales teams. Now, I'm willing to bet there's people who've had a lot of different experiences when it comes to training, when it comes to sales, when it comes to client-facing. And what I want to share with you is some extraordinary results we've got very recently over the last few months. But this has really initiated me coming through and sharing this because I think the approach that we're taking from some feedback that I've got from some clients is very, very different to a lot of other approaches that are out there. So I'm going to share with you 4 techniques that I can nearly guarantee you're not using unless we've worked together very recently. So that is my my disclaimer in that situation. Really, it's going to be very different to, I think, what a lot of other trainings out there, but it'll give you a different insight into this as well. So, folks, just a very quick intro. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but been selling for 32 years. And training corporate teams since 2009. So just over 19,000 hours of actual delivery, not preparation or study, but actual delivery. More than 14,000 people trained, 35 different countries, 7 different languages. And I'm very grateful to have been referred to as one of the most recommended corporate trainers in Australia. I'm very, very, very blessed to do something that I love. I have a deep love for doing business, learning about business, teaching business, and seeing clients getting world-class outcomes, which is ultimately what I'm after. So the reason why, one of the things that motivated me to put this video together, or this training together, is some of the results that we've got very, very recently. And I know there's been other great results in the past, but they're just all, they came in in a short amount of time. That motivated, I've got to go out and share with people how we're actually doing this. So these were messages that were received, came in. So one client, 120 grand per annum, completely organically, just after answering a specific question with a WIIFM. Then we had another client as well who actually took a client from a competitor, securing $300,000 from the competition without having to price match. And there's a lot of pressure on price. There always has been a lot of pressure on price, but being able to use a lot of these techniques and the foundation, which I'm going to share with you, is absolutely a huge thing on this. Also, we're very fortunate to have a lot of recommendations from clients. So just over 750 recommendations for the work that we do, or that I've done with happy clients. So, folks, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. What I'm going to show you is the foundations that we taught people to be able to achieve these outcomes. If you want more details, all of it is on my LinkedIn. You can go and have a look there with regards to the recommendations and some of the case studies as well. But I want to show you exactly how we went out and actually got these. So what I'm going to be sharing with you is what I believe to be absolutely groundbreaking information. Okay, very, very, very valuable stuff. And people would say, well, why would you give this type of stuff away for free? Here's my take on this. Information is absolutely plentiful, folks. We have we have Google. We're drowning in information out there. And whilst information is important, I believe implementation is absolutely crucial. And this is what I focus on. So I sell implementation, as I'll explain shortly. I'm going to explain to you exactly how I do this. But my focus ultimately, when it comes to training sales teams, is my focus is on creating behavioral change, not just information exchange. And this is where I believe I've got a very unique approach with what we're actually doing. What I'm going to be sharing with you is stuff that might not have been addressed before. So please be very open-minded with it, with what I'm about to share with you, because it might answer a lot of questions that you're dealing with at the moment. Also, something else I will say, folks, is this. I know I've got frontline salespeople on this call. I also know I've got sales leaders on this call. So I might well switching back from the we of being salespeople, although we probably are all salespeople, to the they aspect, which is if I'm talking to teams, leadership, and they're managing their team. So I'll just vary back and forth between the two of those. But my focus is very much on being able to not just give people information, but actually being able to create behavioral change in individuals. Because if we can create those behavioral change, then people are going to be in a much better position to get much better outcomes. Give me a yes in the chat box if that resonates, folks, please. I'll try and stay away from getting people to take interactions here, just because I want to make sure that time across as well as get your time used as well as possible. Beautiful. Okay, the yeses are flying in. You dead set legends. All right, beautiful. So I'm going to set a foundation here now with regards to the framework and the way of thinking that we look at things in order to be able to get better outcomes. So you'll see that the image I've got up here, better outcomes, has got 2 bounces and 3 circles, and that I'm going to explain exactly what that logo has come from. So anytime I have the great fortune to work with the sales team, folks, I have one focus, and that focus is on better outcomes, getting people to be able to achieve better outcomes. What does better outcomes look like? Well, it's effectively a sales team or salespeople who are able to hit better targets. They're able to convert at a higher rate. They are able to get more recommendations. They are able to be more aligned with their communication. They're able to influence and persuade, ultimately to get them better outcomes in the workplace environment. That's my North Star. That's my number one goal. And that is what I focus on when I'm training. So if people want to get better outcomes as a result of their training, very often they'll think, okay, well, I'll just go to a workshop. And they think I go to a workshop, or we'll bring in a trainer, and that is absolutely fantastic. They bring in a workshop and a trainer, and very often they'll come to a workshop, or they'll bring in a trainer to conduct a workshop, and what they're focusing on is what they're after strategies, techniques, and understandings. So I'll very often say to people, folks, what would you like to take away from the training? And people will very often say things like maybe tips and tricks, or strategies, techniques, and understandings. People are keen to take away strategies, techniques, and understandings. And here's my issue with this. The common belief is there, folks, is that if you have strategies, techniques, and understandings, that is going to get you better outcomes. But there is an issue with that, because this is what I refer to as information exchange. So I can give you strategies, techniques, and understandings. Absolutely. I do give you strategies, techniques, and understandings. But a book can give you strategies, techniques, and understandings. Just having the strategies, techniques, and understandings is what I refer to as information exchange. And just having that information doesn't mean you're going to get better outcomes. I'm going to give you this example. How many of you would love to be able to make millions in the stock market every single day? I'm guessing everybody here is putting up their hand saying, hell yes, that would be absolutely fantastic. I can give you a strategy for making millions in the stock market every single day. Here's the strategy. You got your pens and paper ready. Strategy is buy low and sell high. Now, that is a strategy. Absolutely it is. But it doesn't mean you're going to get the best outcome, because that still means that it is information exchange. My focus is I want to be able to create behavioral change, because if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. So along with strategies, techniques, and understanding, which of course are important, and you can implement these on a process-driven approach rather than just luck, effectively what we are looking to do is to create not just information exchange, but behavioral change. And the way that we go out and do that is we have to be able to make mindset shifts around certain things. Now, if you've just subconsciously rolled your eyes and thought, oh my goodness, not another one of these sales trainers talking about mindset, I would completely agree with you. Because it's very easy for me to say to you, just be in the right frame of mind. But in my world, that is what I refer to as TBU. And TBU stands for true but useless. Because I can say to you, just be in the right frame of mind. But the fact of the matter is we've all been in situations, maybe in friendships or relationships or jobs, that only once we came out and we look back, we go, where the hell was my mindset? What frame of mind was I in that position when I was in that specific time? So me just saying being in the right frame of mind, being in the right mindset, being in the confident state is TBU, which stands for true but useless. So ultimately, what I have to be able to do is I have to be able to create mindset shifts around certain things that keep people in a more positive, empowered mental and emotional state. And how I do that, I could take you on a 5-day boot camp and share with you exactly how I do it. But I only have 45 minutes now. So ultimately, what I'm looking for is when clients are at training, a 2-day training or what have you, I'm looking for them to have indicators of mindset shifts. And those are very often identified by what we refer to as an aha moment. So you think about something, we're talking about a particular challenge, you're thinking about your context, and we frame it up in a certain way. That last little 5% just drops in. It's like, that's the situation we're talking about. That's what we're thinking about. That makes perfect sense from here on in. So ultimately, what I'm looking to do is to create mindset shifts around certain things so that people are in a positive, empowered mental and emotional state. They can then utilize the strategies, techniques, and understandings, and that will help them get those better outcomes. Because, folks, here's the thing. Here's my promise to you. You can have the greatest strategies in the world. I can write out the greatest sales script in the world. But if I give that sales script to somebody who has got a mindset of massive overwhelm, they've got a high degree of social anxiety, those strategies, that script is not going to carry any weight for them. They're not going to be able to deliver it. Give me a me in the chat box if that makes sense so far, folks, please. This is absolutely crucial, particularly in selling. Fantastic. Beautiful. Makes sense. Beautiful. Okay. Guys, just have yourself on mute there if that's okay.
Sure.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay. So effectively, we have to be able to create that, particularly in selling, folks, particularly when you're selling in to opinionated decision makers, people who are astute buyers. They are looking for a lot of these aspects, particularly with regards to confidence. They're looking at aspects of whether you believe what you're saying, whether you can stand up to scrutiny of these conversations as well. So you can have the best strategies in the world, but if we lose the mindset here, then it's all over. Okay, we get that fight or flight mentality. We don't. We cave to price objections or any other objections. So I have to be able to support people to stay in the right frame of mind. Something else I want to share with you here as well, folks, is whilst I've just spoken about strategies, techniques, and understandings, these are the surface level aspects that we're focusing on. Now, there's something else as well, is any strategy, technique, and understanding that we teach, which includes things like influence and persuasion, confidence, of course, the ability to build value, perceived value, all of these different things might be what we refer to as soft skills or interpersonal skills. The thing is they're notoriously difficult to learn. So every single one of these soft skills, interpersonal skills, they are written out, they're process driven, so it's easy to apply. There's a framework around absolutely everything. Here's the other thing, folks. Where I love to work is with sales teams that are working in B2B, highly competitive marketplaces. And there's a saying that I train very often, which is this. The saying is when you're in a complex sale, highly competitive, you only need to be a fraction better than the alternative in order to get the deal done. Now, what do I mean by that? Whilst I want you miles better than the alternative, when it's all said and done, very often the winner of that tender or that contract is only a fraction better than the alternative. Okay. If you've ever received any of those emails where they say, you know what, thank you so much for your proposal. It was such a difficult discussion that we had here. We were going back and forth between suppliers, but your competitors just eked you out. If they're to be believed, if that email is to be believed, then your competitor beat you by a fraction rather than a mile. So all of the strategies that we teach are the basic strategies that your competitors are learning, but then also with that earned advantage on top of it. And I'll give you an example. Very often when you go to any sales training, people will teach you about rapport building. And very often people are building rapport. And when I say the word rapport, I'm defining it in terms of connection. Very, very often what happens is people are teaching salespeople to build rapport based on external factors. And what I mean by that is have a good handshake, smile, good body language, eye contact, all of that good stuff. Okay, which is great. And I would expect, and we'll teach that as well. But then I want to go a little bit deeper, and I want to get that earned, that additional earned advantage over the competitors. So what we're doing is we're teaching people how to connect on internal basis as well. So being able to align and positively connect with shared positive values and beliefs that we hold about each other as well, which gives us an earned advantage. We get a little bit more of that rapport in a fraction less time as well, which is another area of focus. So every single one of those touch points when it comes to selling, there is an earned advantage in every single one of those areas. So a good, strong, positively empowered mindset, along with strategies, techniques, and understandings that is a fraction better than the alternative, is largely resulting in much better outcomes as displayed earlier. Okay, so why is it so difficult to build high-performing sales teams? So high-performing sales teams can be pretty rare and hard to build. Why? Well, sales can be very stressful, folks. There's a high degree of dealing with rejection, and I'm convinced that rejection is not something that anybody enjoys. You go back to thinking about high school discos and stuff like that, and the amount of rejection received there, but there we go. Can be an emotional roller coaster as well. And salespeople can be very strong-willed and disagreeable. And folks, when I say strong-willed and disagreeable, I consider myself in that as well. But we do have to be able to go out there and challenge a status quo. And therefore, from time to time, we can be a little bit disagreeable, which is fine as well. It's part of how we get things across the line there. But here's the area I want to focus on, folks, is salespeople can become their own source of internal motivation. So very often when we're talking about high-performing, self-motivated sales teams, very often the onus, the expectation of it is that the leadership should always motivate sales teams. And I would agree I would agree with that as well. I would say that, and if I'm training any of my leaders, there's always how do we build more and more the external validation onto the teams. How do we do that? We focus on that a lot. But ultimately, what I want to do and where I focus on is being able to equip the salespeople with building and maintaining their own sense of motivation. Because if we can start doing that, yes, we want to bring in people who are highly self-motivated, but if I can increase that amount of self-held motivation, then very, very often it's going to be easier for the team to work together, to build up the interpersonal conflicts break down or reduce significantly. And ultimately, there is a way of being able to keep our own momentum here as well. External validation is great and we all want it. But if I can be able to train people to carry their own degree of motivation and what I'm going to refer to as professional self-esteem, which I'll get onto a little bit later, then that's absolutely a recipe for great outcomes. And what can the impacts of these problems be, both on micro and macro? Maybe we're not hitting targets. Unfortunately, I've seen negativity towards prospects as well. And folks, listen, I have no business in teaching you things that are theoretically correct, but don't stand up to scrutiny. So I have to call it as I see it. I see the trends. I see what I'm dealing with on a regular basis, and I have to make people aware of these things because otherwise we don't address them and then they don't get solved. So I have seen, I've had salespeople say to me, prospects just not getting it. They just don't get it. Yeah, they don't get it because you're not communicating it well. And that's, that's a focus we're looking at here as well. Negative view on life from time to time, it can get a bit overwhelming. Stress playing out in other ways of life as well. Team morale starts to drop. Interpersonal conflicts can increase as well. This is a rough one when team morale starts going down. Lack of prospecting. Prospecting very, very often can drop off quite quickly because, again, there's a high degree of rejection that very often is faced, and we're not closing deals. Or there are times even where, and I'll address this today, where salespeople are not even asking for the deals. Okay, it's one thing to ask for the deal and not get it, or ask to close, but it's completely another one when people are assuming just the the buyer is just going to automatically buy. They have to be told how to buy as well a lot of the time. And if we're not asking those questions, there can be a challenge. Over talking as well, it can be an aspect on there as well, etc., etc. So all of these can be issues for salespeople, but also their leadership. Okay, so let's get into this, folks. The 4 unique solutions that you might not have heard of before. And if you have, then awesome. But I'm going to go into them quite deeply here. So the first one is seeing the value that they or we bring, okay, which I'm going to get into. Second one is relabeling themselves or ourselves. When I say themselves, it's you talking about your sales team. When it's ourselves, it's us talking about ourselves. Aligning values and beliefs. We're going to get into this. This might be a little bit eyebrow raising. And then a technique called shortening the dopamine cycle as well, which I'm going to share with you. Okay. So 4 steps for influencing mindset. Before I get into this, folks, I want you to take down these 4 things, please. They will be on the recording, obviously, because we're recording this. But these 4 things, I believe, are absolutely fundamental to being able to keep people in the right frame of mind. So these 4 things, whatever you focus on dictates how you feel. How you feel dictates your frame of mind. Your frame of mind dictates your actions, what you say and what you do. And your actions dictate your outcomes. Your actions dictate your outcomes. Now, those 4 things, I believe, will dictate what we do, how we think, and what we say. And I'm going to run a little test with you right now. I want you to give me a yes or a no in the chat box if I'm accurate with this. There's been a time in the last 6 months where you got angry with yourself. Okay, and I'm going to tell you about what that time was. And the yeses, don't send the yeses through yet, folks. Let me see if I got it right first. There's been a time in the last 6 months where you got angry with yourself, and here's what happened. You found yourself in what you might consider a confrontational situation, even if it was just a difference of opinion with somebody. And hopefully you walked away from that confrontational situation. But then 20 minutes later, you got angry with yourself because you're thinking back to the situation. You thought, damn, if only I'd said A, B, and C, that would have really got him. And then you got angry with yourself for not being able to think of those brilliant cutting words in that moment. Give me a me in the chat box if you just felt, if I hit the nail on the head there. You see how quick that reaction was there, cuz? Fantastic. Okay. So, folks, either I understand you all very well or us human beings are all very similar. So, what happened there? I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I'll touch on it. Whatever we focus on dictates how we feel. You're focusing on something your brain interprets as a clear and present danger. Whatever we focus on dictates how we feel. We start to feel a degree of overwhelm. That's that adrenaline starts to flow. How we feel dictates our frame of mind. So we go from a positive empowered mental and emotional state to what we might call a negative overwhelmed fight or flight frame of mind, or freeze or fawn comes into it as well. And here's the thing. When we get that fight or flight, we don't say and do the right thing because our prefrontal cortex actually reduces in size. And because of that, we lose up to 31% cognitive ability. That's why we can't think of those brilliant words in that moment. So effectively, if I'm going to keep somebody motivated, truly motivated, and in the right frame of mind or a better frame of mind, then effectively I have to be able to influence and control what they're focusing on, particularly when I'm training for behavioral change rather than just information exchange. Okay, and we'll get into this. This will come back a little bit later as well. I'll share with you exactly how this plays through, but this is an absolute key. Whatever you focus on dictates how you feel. How you feel dictates your frame of mind. Your frame of mind dictates your actions, and your actions dictate your outcomes. The challenge is very often, folks, is I would argue the human brain is naturally negatively hardwired. And by that, I mean, we notice threats or negativity way before positivity. It's not what we should do. We know it's not the right thing to do, but I'm talking about human behavior. And very often, if I've had a significant emotional experience with massive rejection, I can often focus back on that, and that gets me into that negative frame. Okay. Hope that makes sense, folks. Beautiful. Okay. So, number one biggest thing, folks, I have to bring in order to build high-performing, self-motivating teams is I have to get salespeople to see the value they bring to the table. Now, please be very, very, very clear on this, folks. I am not saying this as some beautiful external pat on the back, sunshine and jelly tots type of thing, a feel good thing. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is I need to get salespeople to realize what's common knowledge to them is a revelation to their decision makers or the people that they're selling to. So I have to get salespeople to see the value they bring to the table. What is common knowledge to you is an absolute revelation to your target audience. And I'm convinced, folks, that this is a human hardwiring aspect that we forget about. We think what's common knowledge to us is common knowledge to everybody, but it's not. And I'm going to get deep into this. So price is only an issue in the absence of value. If salespeople can't build value, buyers will always focus on price. And when we get this right, more confidence leads to more alignment, more authentic, you're more authentic, more professional, and happier customers as well. Okay, so how does this play out? I believe the vast majority of salespeople severely underestimate the value they bring to the table. Because of that, I say that we think what's common knowledge to us is common knowledge to everybody, and it's not. It's a revelation to our target audience. Here's what I want my salespeople thinking about to realize this. Right now, folks, I'm talking to all the frontline salespeople right now. You have between your ears what you think is common knowledge to you. You think it's common knowledge. It's common knowledge to you, but it's common knowledge but you think it's common knowledge to everybody. I need you to realize that what's common knowledge to you is a revelation to your target audience. As a matter of fact, I will go even further. I would say you have common knowledge between your ears that is a revelation to your buyers. And those buyers currently have sleepless nights around something that you can help them with. Give me a yes in the chat box if that makes sense, folks. Your clients currently have sleepless nights around things you could help them with. Your common knowledge could be a revelation to them. It could be the one little thing that gives them that breakthrough, and ultimately that is going to be what's going to solve their problem, and they can then not have those sleepless nights. That's the first thing. Second thing is this: is very often when I'm training salespeople, folks, there are very often people who say, Paul, my clients only buy on price. Now, people will turn around when we're doing training. People will turn around. They will say price is only an issue in the absence of value. Now, I believe in something slightly different. I think that people buy price is only an issue in the absence of perceived value. And what I mean by that is people see value in different ways. So my head of HR would see value in employee retention rates, and my head of finance would see value in terms of bottom line improvements and stuff like that. But the thing is if salespeople underestimate the value they bring to the table, they are not going to be able to build perceived value. And if somebody is selling to you and you've got salesperson A and salesperson B, and neither of them can express value in a way that resonates with you, the common denominator between the two offerings becomes price. And this is the biggest problem I see in business, but certainly in selling. It's highlighted in selling. It's also a big challenge in leadership as well. But if I can get, and there's an exercise we do, it's called the 5 at 5, and at the end of the day, it's effectively people writing out 5 things they've done today to add massive value in their place of work. There's a little bit more that I add to it as well, but this is starting to rewire and starting to get people to notice the value that they bring. Because if I can have my salespeople, my clients, my sales teams seeing the value that they bring, firstly, their sense of certainty goes up a whole lot more, because they start thinking about their relationship with a buyer on a peer-to-peer basis rather than seller and buyer. And folks, this is huge for people in the medical industry, in the legal industry, when you're dealing with hard-nosed buyers, or if I'm selling to a lawyer and you think, whoa, lawyer's up there, or I'm thinking to a doctor and selling to a doctor and I'm thinking doctor's on a pedestal up there, very often I can put myself on the back foot, or I can feel a little bit reserved or concerned that I might not be able to bring value to those high-profile people. Give me a yes in the chat box if that makes sense, folks, please. But when I can start, big yeses, beautiful. But when I can start getting people to see that they do bring that value, now we start knowing whenever we're talking about my solution here, that's when I control frame. That's when I have confidence. And folks, just a quick one. Confidence is very different to arrogance, because people are often worried about being seen as arrogant, and we'll get onto that a little bit later. But confidence is when you see the value you bring and you just want to contribute a hell lot more. Okay. Arrogance, I think, comes from insecurity, and very often it'll be broken down very, very quickly there as well. Okay, so effectively, we have to be able to see the value we bring to the table, and not just know this logically, but actually carry it emotionally. Because when you carry the stuff emotionally, it starts impacting your whole body, and your body language supports your tonality, supports the words you're using. You can think more clearly, you can focus on the client, you can start picking up on those physiological cues that are going on, and you can start really thinking about, how does my offering, how can I adapt my offering to this target audience, and build that massive, massive value. Second thing is, we have to start relabeling ourselves. Now, this is a fascinating one, folks. But human beings don't like getting negative labels put on themselves by other people. We will often avoid activities that might lead to the risk of getting a negative label on us. And how we think about ourselves, the values and beliefs that we hold about ourselves, will dictate our actions. Okay, so I hope this is not. I hope this is not new, but we all hold values and beliefs about ourselves, consciously and subconsciously. We have positive values and beliefs we hold about ourselves, and we have negative ones as well, consciously and subconsciously. And here's the fascinating thing, is that none of us wants to get a negative label put on us, particularly by people that we respect, we want to emulate, or we want to be liked by. And because of this, very, very often, I've found salespeople starting to become very, very hesitant with prospecting, with following up with clients. Why? I hope this is not unfair for me to say, but I'm hoping you would agree that very often, externally, there are people that we know that might have negative thought processes of salespeople. Give me a yes in the chat box if you would agree with that. There are people out there, there's stereotypes out there who would think negatively or put negative labels on salespeople. So this can become a massive hindrance, folks. Here's why. Because if I see myself as a salesperson, and I'm very consciously aware that I want to be liked by people, as we all do on some level, we want to be seen ourselves as valuable as well. Some of the negative connotations that people could have towards salespeople are things like, pushy, salesy, got commission breath. They're just trying to sell me something, etc., etc., etc. And we don't want to get these negative labels put on us. So what I've seen us doing is actually stopping things like prospecting. Now, what do I mean by that? If I've called a prospect, if I've got a prospect that I've reached out to, that I've reached out to once or twice, and they haven't come back to me, I know I need to follow up maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, but I don't want to make the third or fourth call. Why? Because of the fear that I potentially have of being called pushy or salesy, and I don't want to get that negative label. So it might be a lot easier for me just to go and speak to a current client or something like that. Particularly, this is why very often sales leaders can say to me, "We've got people who are on key account management, and they're supposed to be generating new business as well, but they're doing very little generation of new business because you've got to make these phone calls." So very often, having the fear of getting a negative label put on us can often stop us from doing something. In this case, making a third call, making a fourth call, making a fifth call. Why? Because we don't want to get the prospect saying you're salesy, you're pushy, etc., etc. So here's how I change this. I want you from now on, folks, and again, how we ingrain this, how we create behavioral change. Normally, I have 2 days to be able to do this. I've got like 40 minutes to do this with your folks. But what I want you to do, folks, is I want you to stop seeing yourselves as sales people. And I want you to start seeing yourself as a world-class problem solver. My salespeople, when I'm training them, got 2 days of training. They will come out of those trainings, and the whole thing is, how do you perceive yourself? I see myself as a world-class problem solver. You start to realize, based off that first step, that you have what you believe to be common knowledge to you is a revelation to your target audience. And that revelation could be the solution to a problem that's keeping your clients up at night. If you can do that, folks, then effectively you start becoming a world-class problem solver. You see yourself as somebody with valuable information that ultimately can build massive value and help people get outcomes. So you stop seeing yourself as a salesperson and you start seeing yourself as a world-class problem solver. You can start seeing how that first step is so crucial on this as well. Now, with this being done, folks, I want you to think about this. If you see yourself as a world-class problem solver and you have a genuine desire for the best outcomes for the clients that you're speaking to, you know you have a profile of business that you could potentially help. You will have a lot less issues picking up that phone and making a phone call. And I'm going to make it quite extreme. I'll go to the other side. Let's say you had a family member, somebody that you loved, somebody that you knew had a problem. They didn't live with you. You would have no issues with picking up that phone and making a phone call to them because you know you've got a solution to a problem that could keep them up at night. Okay, you would have no issues with that. But very, very often, if I see myself as a salesperson on a subconscious point of view, then very, very often what's going to happen is I'll pick up that phone. I think, I don't want to be pushy or salesy. But if I can see myself as somebody who solves problems, now I see myself in a completely different light, a much more empowered, much more motivated aspect, because now I get to solve people's problems. Give me a me in the chat box if you like that, folks. If you like that concept, that way of thinking. Again, it's not just something to understand logically, folks. It's something I have to ingrain emotionally, okay? Because we know things logically. We know that eating junk food is not good for you, okay? But emotionally, sometimes that craving just gets too strong. So we have to create that behavioral change, not just information exchange. Beautiful stuff. Thank you so much, folks. Appreciate it. Okay, step 3 is if you can align your values with the job you're doing, you become supercharged. Okay, so people will not do something that goes against their values and belief systems, particularly about themselves. If you can align their values with work they do, they become supercharged. Okay, so folks, again, values and beliefs we just touched on. I'm going to show you how this goes in even deeper. I am picking up a lot of work right now with teams and salespeople individually as well. So teams that have a large number of these salespeople who perceive themselves on this basis, but also individuals who consider themselves very people, very empathetic people, which is awesome. Okay, they really are absolutely awesome. It's just one example. But empathetic people are absolutely phenomenal when it comes to building rapport, building engagement, and really, having a chat with people and trying to and getting them to open up. So empaths have that great ability to connect with others. They're people. They're what they might call people pleasers as well. They can identify problems and stuff like that. So being able to call out these positive beliefs that people have about themselves. Yes, I'm very, very much a people person, and aligning those people person skills with things like building rapport and problem identification. If you can align that self-perception with the outcomes that you want, now people start identifying with how they actually perceive themselves and how that makes them a good salesperson or a good world-class problem solver. The issue very often comes in, folks, that they can often have a tough time holding when we have to start being a little bit more assertive with our communication. So going in and closing a deal, or being able to hold a buyer to account on something that was said, etc., etc., etc. So they can be highly agreeable, great degree of emotional intelligence, all of these good things, but also sometimes agreeable to a level where it doesn't serve them to actually get the business done. And one of those examples is closing. Okay. So give me a yes in the chat box if that makes sense, folks, what I've just said there, please, because I'm just giving you one example with a big target audience that I'm seeing at the moment. Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to show you how we can actually reframe the activities of a salesperson, particularly when it comes to something like closing. And I know if you followed any of my content on LinkedIn, you might have seen the professional video that I put together on this, but I'm going to reframe this. So very often our empaths, we've been speaking about that profile of people, the empaths, they are very good at building rapport, connection, but they are not very good at closing. Why? Because they don't want to be seen as salesy, pushy. They don't want to be seen as bossy or telling the client what to do or anything like that. They're very much people pleasers. And believe this or not, I was quite surprised when I saw the amount of this happening, but people were not prepared to ask for the deal because they believed that was going to lead to a lot of the other negativity that was spoken about already. So if I am presenting and I'm training people, I'll ask how many of you are battling with asking for the deal. And we built some good rapport and everything like that, and people's hands go up. So one of the first things I'll say is, what are the reasons that stop people from actually asking for the business? And people give all these things, and sometimes people don't. They say they don't have the confidence, they don't feel okay in asking for the deal. Also citing things like rejection and what have you. So there are a lot of people who think that if I try to close, if I ask for the deal, that is effectively me being bossy or pushy or salesy or what have you, snake oil sales or what have you. Okay. So what I have to do is I have to reframe this. So here's how I go. If I'm working with a group of people who perceive themselves as empaths, I will ask them to put up their hand if they consider themselves a good person. Now you might be thinking, well, Paul, this is crazy. Should you be talking like that? It works well. And I get a lot of thanks for doing this. But I'll say, how many of you consider yourself a good person? Put up your hand, please. And the hands go up. I say, actually, no. I'll tell you what. Let's stand up. I want you all standing up, folks, please. How many of you consider yourselves to be good people? And everybody stands up in the room, obviously. I say, okay, fantastic. Sit down, please. We're all sitting down. It's like, okay. So I'm going to reframe this and get you thinking in a different way. And I'm going to do it via a story. And we all like a good story. Hopefully this is a good story. And if you want the video of this, folks, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll send you the actual video. But this movie, this story is going to be based around the movie Jungle Book. Now, I'm sure you've all seen, maybe you've seen Jungle Book, I don't know. But if you haven't seen Jungle Book is a Disney classic from back in the day. I think there's been a fair few remakes of it. But it's made up of a story about a boy called Mowgli, who was born, or he's found in the jungle, he was an orphan in the jungle, and he's raised by all the animals. Okay, now Mowgli was very, very good at getting at learning, all the stuff from the wild animals and all these life lessons. So anyway, the story starts, and I don't know how the hell this story started, but poof, all of a sudden, you and I find ourselves in the jungle. How we got there, I don't know. But you and I are lost in the jungle. And I look at you and you look at me. I say, where are we? And you go, we're in the jungle, Paul. And I say, well, we're lost. And you say, yes. And I say to you, are you a subject matter expert in getting out of the jungle? And you say, no. You say to me, Paul, are you a subject matter expert in getting out of the jungle? I say, no. But anyway, we're progressive people. We're forward-moving people. So we want to be able to start getting out of the jungle. So we start walking around because we're forward moving, and we're walking around. Hours go by, and our water bottles getting less and less and less, and there's crazy noises coming out of the jungle. And I swear we've walked past that tree 3 times, and you and I start getting a bit disagreeable. Our tempers start raising a little bit, and we're getting nervous. And you and I start to realize that we've got a problem. We've got a big problem. We are lost in the jungle until we come into a clearing. And we hear this, oi, you two, what are you doing? And you grab me by the arm. You say, look up there, Paul. It's Mowgli from the Jungle Book. And Mowgli comes sliding down one of the trees as he does. And he goes, what are you two doing? And he goes, are you lost? And you go, yes, we are. And he goes, oh, so you have a little bit of a problem. And we go, yes. We need you to help us get out of the jungle. So, and then you said, well, Mowgli, hang on, you're a subject matter expert in getting out of the jungle, yes or no? Mowgli goes, yes. So Mowgli currently has common knowledge, which is a revelation to you and me. So Mowgli goes, because Mowgli had heard somewhere that people buy from people who educate them. So Mowgli goes, no worries at all, come follow me and we'll get out of the jungle. So anyway, we're walking out the jungle, and Mowgli's saying, stay away from that bush because there's thistles there, stay away from the water because it's alligators. I don't know if you get alligators in the jungle, but anyway. And walking our way through there. And Mowgli goes, he gets 3/4 of the way out of the jungle. And you and I are all excited now because we're going to get out of the jungle, which is great. And Mowgli all of a sudden gets this sudden hit of anxiety. And he goes, oh my goodness, I don't want to be seen as salesy or pushy or telling people what to do. And they might think I'm salesy or pushy or telling people what to do. So Mowgli, in this fit of social anxiety, goes, well, there we go. I've given you all the information, folks. See how you go here. And Mowgli disappears as quickly as he's come, as quickly as he arrived. You and I look at each other. We're 3/4 of the way out the jungle, but we still have a problem. We don't know how to get out of the jungle. Exactly the same as your clients, folks. Your clients still have the problem. You've maybe told them how they can solve it, But effectively, they still have that problem until they sign on the dotted line. You're the one who'll be able to make that problem go away. And then I'll go back to my empathetic people and say, how dare you, and I say this with all the love in the world, be able to solve someone's problems, but you don't want to give them that last quarter. How dare you do that? You're good people. So until you tell the client how to solve the problem, they still have the problem. How do they solve the problem? They sign on the dotted line. You're able to support them on that journey to be able to solve their problems. If you have common knowledge that could be a solution to a problem that's keeping somebody else up at night, as a good person, you would tell them about it and tell them how to solve that problem. Give me a me in the chat box if that makes sense, folks. It's a reframe. Until they know how to be able to do that, they still have that problem. And as good people, we don't let people battle with that. Beautiful stuff, folks. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, now on to the fourth thing. Here's what I like to do, folks. We've got a concept here which says human behavior that's rewarded is repeated. Okay, human behavior that's rewarded is repeated. So what I want to do is I want to shorten the dopamine cycle. Now, dopamine, as I'm sure you're aware, or you may well be aware, is that feel-good drug, feel-good hormone, that we can get, feel-good chemistry that we can develop in ourselves, and it's released and obviously makes us feel great in certain circumstances. But most people only celebrate when they get a sale or hit targets, maybe on a monthly basis, and this creates a bulldog mentality. And what I mean by that, folks, is very often if I'm not getting those results, then I've just got to keep going until I get the dopamine hit, which means get a big deal lead in time, or it gets the end of the month of hit quota or what have you. Okay, very much a bulldog mentality. So what I want to start doing is getting teams to focus on shorter term wins. Of course, and I know we've got a lot of leadership on here, scores on the doors is important, okay, because that's what senior management's after, etc. Those are important, but I would argue those bigger wins are made up of smaller wins. And a better day than yesterday. So we're focusing on doing better than what we did yesterday, and we're looking to be making progress. This keeps your momentum higher, and human behavior that's rewarded is repeated. So what I like to do is I like to reframe what a success looks like. So a success could be, I made a higher number of cold calls today, or I was able to have to build more value into a conversation. But what I'm looking to do is, as a team, I'm looking to identify a short-term criteria that is going to give a reward to the individual. So whether they hit their goal of 120 calls a day or 100 calls a day, or they've got additional proposals out, whatever it is, but some degree of shorter term goal that's going to allow some degree of dopamine hit. Because here's the thing, folks. If you can keep people taking good that good energy from the work they do, then effectively what's going to happen is they're going to keep their own momentum. One of the ways we do this, and I know we're talking about empaths very much recently, but when we make sure that people get off calls and have had good conversations, because you get that warm feeling in your gut when you've had a good conversation, and if I can get them focusing on that, then it's going to manage their state a whole lot better, and it's going to make it a lot easier to stay in the right frame of mind, stay in the right state, keep doing the right thing, rather than only celebrating once a month or what have you. Okay, so that is another technique that we will utilize. So bearing in mind, I want to make sure I keep my my promise of time for you here, folks, is a summary of 4 unique approaches to get better outcomes in self-motivated teams. We've got to see the value we bring to the table. We can relabel ourselves, so salespeople or world-class problem solvers. The choice is yours. Aligning values and beliefs with desired outcomes, and ultimately shorten the dopamine cycle. So those are the 4 techniques we will use. Again, folks, normally I have 2 days of training, which I can get onto this and really drive this deep. There's been teams I've worked with who have taken on a whole different level of communication, a whole different language that they're taking on, and there's certain things that they can say and do to each other. They remember from the training as well. So that is a great aspect towards building a great positive culture there as well. So, folks, listen, I hope this has been of value. If you'd like to discuss any more of the stuff, I'm not a hard man to get hold of. I live and breathe the stuff. I'm so grateful to be able to do what I love. You can get hold of me on my email or LinkedIn as well. And there's a recording to follow. And folks, I'm going to open up the chat to any questions. So if there's any specific questions, please send those through. If you need to jump off, that's absolutely awesome. I thank you so much for your time. But Cuz will bring in a few of the questions shortly. But I received a message today at 10:33 from a gentleman who's not able to make the live call. He's actually having a live meeting to get a recording. But I worked with him 3 years ago, had a 2-day workshop with him, and he just said, "Thanks, Paul. I'm super keen to be here to be there in person, but in-person meetings will have me watching the recording. Glad it'll be available. The sales boot camp you ran nearly 3 years ago has made a huge difference in my work and personal life. Thanks." And folks, I make no bones about it. I love what I do. I really do. I'm very, very blessed to do the work I do. Also, one of the and I know we've got some relevant people on here who supported me on this, so you know who you are. I won't embarrass you on this, but one of the reasons I had the great fortune to be able to stay in this great country, and I've lived in a fair number of countries, and I think this is the greatest country I've lived in. It's given me so much, and one of the reasons they allowed me to stay was on a global talent visa with regards to continuing to train Australian business people. So I love what I do. It's my finest addiction, and I will continue to work with teams to build Australian business teams, sales teams specifically, as much as I possibly can. So, folks, if there's any way I can help you in the future, please let me know. Cuz, I've got to give you a massive shout out as well, my man. Thanks so much for co-hosting on this. Any questions, comments, observations, please send them through to Cuz.
I've got one, Paulie. It's not really a question. It's more of a personal observation for me around what you talked about in regards to the value that people bring to the table and putting labels on themselves. And it was actually from a meeting that I had this morning with a couple of gentlemen, which is why it's fresh of mind. It's something that I've always struggled with, seeing the value I bring to the table, and still do in certain situations. And I happen to talk to these guys about how I've been a carpenter for 30 years, and that's how I see myself. And I got corrected on it, and the way that the gentleman who was on here, actually, he gave me a new frame on it. He said, you need to try and break from that identity, because while it's very important and it's what got you to where you are today, it could also be what's holding you back from being what you could be. So seeing the value you bring to the table and making sure you stay in that good frame of mind and labeling is very important. So I'll thank that man for that when I see him next time.
Fantastic. Any questions, comments?
There's been quite a few positive comments coming through. One question is the difference between, or do you think there is a difference between, or do you see any difference between training people virtually, or training face to face?
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so this question comes up a lot. Thanks for that. The question that comes up a lot is what's the difference between the virtual and face to face training? Folks, I think post-COVID, this has given us new experiences. There's a lot of people out there who believe that virtual delivery is not at the same level as face-to-face, and certainly I can understand that. What I will say, though, is we have the feedbacks we get from virtual training is right up there with face-to-face as well. So effectively, we are in a position where we're getting very, very good results on face-to-face or virtual. Virtual, there will be some pros and cons as well. You don't have to, there's not travel costs and stuff like that. Face-to-face, I think there is, it's a nice aspect for the team as well. It's not that they are exactly even. I think there's some pros and some cons on both sides there. But as far as the outcomes go, I think that you can ingrain learnings via both mediums. I think from a facilitator trainer's point of view, there's a lot of we need to take some different approaches, but ultimately you can get very similar outcomes. Yeah.
Excellent.
Hope that answers their question.
Yeah. Nothing else has come through yet. You've done a great job explaining yourself, Paulie. No questions.
Fantastic. Awesome stuff. Beautiful. Well, folks, if there's no questions on there, if there's anything that pops up a little bit later, again, no worries at all. If you've got any questions, comments, observations, also, folks, if you're looking for, if you know anybody who is looking for sales team training, particularly people who are selling into B2B markets, highly competitive, then I am always happy to have a conversation. And if you were to make a recommendation of me to train with anybody that you know, then I can assure you I will do everything I can to make sure that they are very happy with the recommendation they received and they see you as a hero for doing that. Fantastic. Brilliant. Yasmin, my pleasure. Great stuff. Babu, fantastic. Thank you so much. Edgar, great stuff there. Awesome. Maria, thank you. That's awesome. Okay, so folks, great stuff. Cuz, I want to thank you for putting your time on the line as well, my man.
No problem.
And I think we might make this type of thing a once a month type of scenario. So getting those regular calls in, and if people take value from it, then that's great.
I think it's a good idea. I really do. Look at the feedback. It's gone well.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, no, it's some great stuff. Beautiful. Okay, Cuz, thanks so much, my man. I appreciate you. Folks, thank you so much for your time. I never thank people for being here, but I do thank them for the time, because time is the one thing we don't get back. So there we go. Folks, take it easy. Have a great rest of the week. Until next time. Take care, folks. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
No worries. Cheers, folks. Great stuff.